Hello, welcome to Outspoken Samantha. On my channel, I like to give my personal opinion and perspective on current events and issues that are happening today. Things that I think actually matter to everyday people, especially those of us that are trying to raise kids in the insanity that is today's society. We are not CEOs of big corporations. We are not part of the mainstream media. We don't live in the Hollywood bubble, and we are not politicians in Washington, D.C. But we do actually have to live with the consequences of the decisions being made by the people in the previously mentioned categories. If you feel like that describes you, please like this video, leave a comment below, and subscribe to my channel. All these things help to grow my channel so that I can hopefully reach more people that value logic, reason, and sanity. Also, be sure to find me on Rumble under Outspoken Samantha in the event that YouTube decides that I have violated their community standards and chooses to kick me off their platform forever. That being said, let's get into today's topic. So, a few days ago, CNN posted this. Just for the sake of saying it out loud, that statement said the term groomer is a homophobic stereotype used to falsely smear queer people and their supporters as child sex abusers. Now, what I find interesting about that statement is who are the people that assigned the word groomer to the LGBTQIA community? Because it wasn't me. I'm assuming it wasn't you. The people that associated that word with that community are the people that came out and lied about the Parental Rights and Education Bill, that labeled it as a Don't Say Gay bill, and said that gay teachers were being targeted and they could not talk about their intimate lives with kids under the age of 8. Even though in that bill, it doesn't mention the word gay once, it doesn't target a specific group of people, it doesn't say that heterosexual people can have sexual conversations with kids while gay or queer people cannot. It said these discussions are not appropriate for children between kindergarten and 3rd grade. It was the media pushing this idea that if a parent was against sexual conversations with their child in the classroom, that this was a direct target to the LGBTQIA community, that it was a direct attack on them. They're the ones that put these two things together. And now they're saying that it's a word used to smear queer people, even though they're the ones that basically said that if you use the word groomer, you're talking about the entirety of this community. To drive the point home, all of y'all that said that this is not something you're doing, that you are not grooming children, that you're not having sexual conversations with children, you're pretty upset about a law that says that you can't do something that you're saying that you're not doing. Accompanying that is the follow-up idea that the curriculum that is in our schools that talks about pride, that having these drag queen story hours, having naked pride events, putting your child on a stripper pole, or putting your child on stage with a drag queen and having them dance for money, or having your teacher discuss sexuality with your kid without your knowledge, that none of these things are considered grooming. The question is, what would you call it then? Education? Are drag queens suddenly child development experts or child care experts? And what exactly are children learning by putting dollar bills in the underwear of a grown adult that's dressed like a sexualized caricature of a woman? So recently, the Daily Mail posted an article that compares the clinical definition of grooming to the things that our children are being exposed to in school. So I think that we should go through it, and then you can give me all of your justifications as to why this isn't grooming, and that kids seeing naked adults on bicycles at a pride parade is really for their benefit. So in the article, it says the dictionary definition of groomer is the criminal activity of becoming friends with a child in order to persuade the child to have a sexual relationship. And that's according to the Cambridge English Dictionary. So, would these things be considered grooming? The article goes on to say many school districts, including large districts such as Los Angeles Unified, have adopted explicit policies that teachers can facilitate a child's gender and sexual transition without notifying parents. In fact, the default is to keep these transitions a secret. The child has to request notification. This is extremely dangerous and an immense violation of the rights of parents to know what's happening to their children, and opens kids up to manipulation, indoctrination, and abuse. First of all, I understand that the drag queen in the photo with the kids may not be the person that preys on them, may not be the person that ends up harming that child. What this means is that this behavior is normalized to that child, so that if there is someone, it may not be the adult right next to them, but anybody that comes into their space and behaves in the same way and chooses to prey on them, that behavior is normal. These kind of interactions are normal to that child. So they are being groomed for anybody to come in and exploit them and take advantage of them and target them in some way. As far as the school districts saying that they can transition a child or change their name or change their pronouns without notifying the parents, so many people keep saying that this isn't happening, despite the fact that there are documents and school curriculums and websites and videos of teachers saying that this is what they're doing, of kids being pulled into clubs that are called something else, and then when they get there, they realize it's an LGBTQIA alliance club, and explicitly told by their teachers not to tell the parents. There are teachers that have set up transition closets in their classrooms so kids can come to school in the clothing that their parent approved and then change into something else. If a boy comes to school in jeans and t-shirt, he can change into a dress and put on lipstick and jewelry and be a completely different person at school. And they are allowed to call them by a different name and call them by different pronouns, and essentially completely change that child's identity and completely, in turn, separate them from the identity that they have at home, from the relationships that they have at home, from the entire foundation that they have built by being that person at home. They've created a completely separate alternate universe almost.
That's why this year I created these survey cards that ask students their pronouns, if they're comfortable with me using those pronouns in front of their peers, and definitely if they're comfortable with me using those pronouns with their parents and families.
Goes on to say, another key step in grooming is exposing children to sexualized content at a young age. They start to bring up some kind of sexual content at some points so that they can start to initiate some contact with the child. Is that happening?
Let's get the shake your ass. Ain't no shame, ladies, do your thing.
In the fourth and final stage, before the contact abuse occurs, the perpetrator prepares the minor for abuse by desensitizing them to sexual content. Clinical psychologist, sexual violence prevention expert, and professor of psychology at John Jay College, Dr. Elizabeth Jellick, told the caller. She said examples can include showing them pornography, talking about sexual experiences, and teaching them about sexual education. Talking about standard sexual education that kids have been learning for years and years in the classroom. Just a few months ago, about 6 months ago, my oldest child is in 5th grade, and his teachers sent out a link saying our these kids are going to have a health class. They're going to be learning from this video. We're going to be watching this video. It's about 15 minutes long. They sent the video for all the parents to watch. And honestly, I found the information informative. I found it age appropriate. And I think it explained a lot of things in a clear and concise way that perhaps some parents might struggle to explain. So it's not that a bunch of us parents are sitting here saying that we're completely against sex education in school, or that. And when I saw the video and was able to watch it for myself, I said, this is appropriate. And my child was able to attend that class with his friends and kind of break down those barriers and not put so much pressure on these conversations, where he was able to come home and we said, we know that this is what you watched today. We know that this is what you were learning about. What questions do we have? What can we clarify for you? Don't ever be afraid to come to us with your concerns or with any questions you have, because you are getting older and things are going to start happening to your body that you might need clarification on and understanding of, so that you don't freak out. But you know what we didn't need to do? We did not need to take him to a bar to have him dance with grown adults dressed as sexualized characters. We didn't need to have him dance for cash. We did not need to have him learn how to pole dance or attend a parade with naked adults riding bicycles up and down the street. So to say what kids are being exposed to in school, in some of these schools, and what's being pushed from every corner of the country, from our local school boards all the way up to the White House, if you don't call that grooming, what would you call it? And if you're being honest with yourself, do you really think that these events and this exposure and these adult interactions and these adult conversations are really have anything to do with love and tolerance, with learning acceptance, with growing up to not be a bigot? I mean, in the article, it mentions nothing about sexual orientation of the person exposing these children to these ideas and concepts and content. It doesn't say that it's more harmful to expose them to gay sexual material versus straight sexual material. And yes, it did give the examples of drag queens and pride events and things like that, but that's what kids are being exposed to. If I found out that my kid's 4th grade teacher took them on a field trip to a strip club, or that a straight teacher was taking them to events involving their personal life or sex toys or talking about their relationship with their opposite gendered partner, the message would be exactly the same. The outrage would be exactly the same. But those are not the things that are happening in the classroom. So I'm talking about specifically what is happening. And if you think that this is not having an impact on children, that it's not putting a big bullseye on their backs for sexual predators, and that it's not making them more vulnerable to dangerous situations, maybe have a look at these. So, I have a question. If this isn't grooming, what do you call it? What would your definition be? If there was an agenda to sexualize children at a young age and make them vulnerable to predators, and this wasn't it, what would you do differently? Another question. Where do you draw the line? What is too far for you? If you can be convinced that half-naked grown adults dressed as hypersexualized versions of women around your child, or that naked adults on bicycles isn't too far, or that teachers being given permission to change your child's name and pronouns and entire identity without your permission, kids dancing on stage for money and pole dancing and attending events where adults are dancing sexually on stage and exposing themselves to children, being in school and reading books about sexuality, or having a teacher have private conversations with your child and being told not to come home and tell you about it. If none of these things are too far, what is? Where do you draw the line? What book, event, or interaction is too far for you to finally step in as a parent and finally protect your children? All of these things, set your child up to walk straight into the hands of a predator. If they have been around you and you have given them permission to walk hand in hand with a half-naked adult, to be at a performance where an adult is dancing provocatively on stage, where it's okay for them to have sexual conversations with their teachers. If all of these things, if mommy and daddy has said that this is okay, then it must be safe. It must be a safe activity. This must be a normal interaction for me as a little kid to have with an adult. And if my parents have said that all of these other things are okay, why would this adult touching me not be okay? Why would this adult getting closer to me and asking me to do things not be okay when everything up until this point has been okay? So again, where do you draw the line? Or do you even have a line? Do you honestly even believe that these things matter to the psychological, mental, emotional, and physical development of your child? That they don't have an impact at all, or that you're really benefiting them in some way by exposing them to these things at such an early age, things that they are not prepared to handle, things that they are not mature enough to understand and to grasp and to put into context and apply safely to different scenarios. Thank you so much for watching today. I really appreciate your support. Please like this video. Please leave a comment. I really want to hear your thoughts and your perspective. Share the video if you think it's worth sharing. Please subscribe. Also hit the notification bell so you get a notification every time I post a new video. And I really appreciate doing all those things and being here with me today. I will see you soon.